Okay, let's quickly touch on what's been happening with India and Pakistan at the moment. So it seems like the tensions are getting very, very high again. The situation is getting very dangerous. Of course, India and Pakistan, they haven't been getting along for many decades now. They fought different wars. But I have to say that we have had a relatively long period of relative peace. But now all of a sudden tensions are getting high again. So what happened recently is that what many would call a terrorist attack happened in the Pahalgam region, and many people have died. So I believe 26 people have lost their lives. The Indian government has vowed to go after these forces, also go after these forces in Pakistan. So it's a very explosive situation. Again, they fought different wars before. The difference now is that both Pakistan as well as India are now equipped with a lot of nuclear weapons. So they are nuclear superpowers at the moment. So situation is very, very dangerous, not only for India and Pakistan, but frankly for the entire planet. So let's hope that this can still be resolved diplomatically. Maybe someone can step in, like China, maybe Russia, or maybe someone else. And hopefully this can be resolved in another way other than with violence. Now, there is one thing I'd like to discuss about this. I have a question. Am I the only one who has a feeling that there might be another actor other than India and Pakistan that might be very much involved in all of this? Now, let me tell you what I mean. First, some context. Now, we know that the global West has played a very dominant role in the world for centuries, right? But they haven't exactly behaved very nicely always. I mean, their attitude has always been one of, you do as we tell you or we will destroy you, right? So European countries have sailed all over the world. Wherever they went, they sowed chaos and destruction. They colonized regions. They suppressed the indigenous people. They stole their natural resources. At one point, they even stole the people that were to be used as slaves. We all know that story, right? But that's been the behavior of the global West for centuries. By the way, one very good example of this is what happened with the British in what we now call India and Pakistan. So they colonized that region. They suppressed the indigenous people. They stole their natural resources. They were also applying a tactic of divide and conquer. Up until then, there were different groups in the region, different religious groups also, but they were all coexisting. It was only until the West started intervening that the real problem started, as happened so often. At one point, they decided to divide up the region into two different countries, being India and Pakistan. And as happened so often when these Western imperialistic powers do something like this, very often deliberately, they did it in such a way that it would inevitably lead to a lot of violence and a lot of chaos. So they divided it up into India and Pakistan, but they left one region up for grabs, and India and Pakistan have been fighting over that ever since. Now, of course, I know this might be a little bit of an oversimplification of things, but just to illustrate the behavior of the global West, it's been going on for centuries and it's been going on to this day. I mean, the names have changed a little bit. We used to talk about the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British. Now, of course, we're talking about the United States. The methods have changed a little bit. They've become a little bit more sophisticated also. Now we're talking about sanctions, economic sanctions. The dollar has been used as a weapon. They haven't shied away from assassination attempts and also quote-unquote successful assassinations. They've also used terrorist groups to sow havoc in different regions in the world. And they've also made a hobby out of regime change operations. So overt regime change operations, basically meaning going to war with a country to overthrow the government, or covert regime change operations. For those of you that don't know, a covert regime change operation is, in this case, the United States helping to overthrow a foreign government and of course replacing it with a government that is much more sympathetic to American interests, but doing it in such a way that it is not known to the general public that it was actually them that were behind this all along. That's a covert regime change operation. And the United States has done this dozens and dozens of times. They've done it in Latin America. They've tried to do it in Venezuela several times unsuccessfully. They've done it in Africa. They've done it in Asia. They've done it in Europe. I mean, they've done it in Ukraine. They've tried to do it in Georgia unsuccessfully, or maybe you could say that is still ongoing. But also there's a lot of very strong evidence that they also did it in Pakistan. So the government at the time, led by Prime Minister Imran Khan, was overthrown just a few years ago, and there's a lot of strong evidence that the United States was very much involved in this. Now, what we should also keep in mind is that the dominance of the global West, the dominance of the United States, has been under a lot of pressure lately. So we're seeing some challengers. I mean, the BRICS nations are challenging the West economically. BRICS already has surpassed the G7 by far economically. Also, BRICS represents about 50 or 60 or more percent of the global population, much more than the West. China is challenging the United States directly as being for being the number one superpower, certainly economically and also technologically. Also, militarily, the United States can no longer assert its dominance on everyone. That just doesn't work anymore. So, you know, the dominance of the United States is very much under pressure. Now, what we see happen all the time when the dominant force is being challenged, we can also see this in nature. When the dominant force is being challenged, that is a recipe for a lot of chaos and a lot of violence. And that's what we've been seeing happening right now. So it very much seems like the United States has been acting out left and right, but they seem to have chosen a tactic of trying to weaken their adversaries, trying to weaken their challengers, you know, in order to slow them down in their development. I mean, instead of trying to cooperate with them as normal people would do, but they're trying to slow them down. You know, and we've seen this play out in Ukraine, for example. I mean, the United States has been using Ukraine as a proxy to fight Russia, to weaken Russia. I mean, we've seen the chaos in the Middle East. There's now talk of the United States going to war with Iran. You know, Iran, of course, being a very important partner for BRICS. Also, we're seeing the tension building in the South China Sea, with the United States threatening to go to war with China over Taiwan, even though the United States officially recognizes Taiwan as being part of China. So, you know, also the so-called trade war is also part of all of this. So that seems to be the tactic of the United States. They're trying to sow destruction and slow down their adversaries, slow down their challengers. And it seems like that they're hoping that that will allow them to hold on a little bit longer to their dominant position in the world. Now, another thing that we have to keep in mind is that another very important member of BRICS is, of course, India. And with that, you could consider India also a challenger for the United States indirectly. Now, adding all of this up, so the behavior of the global West for centuries and the behavior of the United States for decades, knowing that the United States is slowly but surely losing its dominant position in the world, knowing that the United States is seemingly acting out in some kind of panic mode and seemingly has chosen a tactic of trying to weaken its challengers by indirectly or directly attacking them, knowing that there is very strong evidence of the United States being involved in the overthrow of the Imran Khan government in Pakistan, knowing that India is part of BRICS and with that might be considered a challenger for the United States dominance, knowing that the United States has had a history of using terrorist groups, and of course, knowing that after a relatively long period of relative peace, tensions between India and Pakistan all of a sudden are flaring up, seemingly out of the blue. I mean, is it a very crazy thing to think that the United States might have something to do with this? Is that a strange thing to think? Well, of course, this is still all speculation, but think about it for a moment.